first of all, thank you for having us. Thank you for coming out and speaking today. I saw an interview that you did, I think it was like in 2020. This was like a bit of a while back where you were talking about how when you were wrapping up your last startup, you were so disappointed that you went to lunch with your first investor and then passed him a note and you just couldn't look him in the eyes. I think something that I'm really curious about is like psychologically, what's kind of going through your head at that point? And then now that you're working on this startup it's a big success now, how do you kind of look back on that? And so I guess it's kind of two questions, like what was going on between your ears and then, how does that kind of fit in with your narrative right now?
Great question. So just to give everyone the same context is, when I pivoted the business into what would become Ada, I felt like a real failure. And I went to our lead investor and asked him for lunch to come to lunch. And I wrote out what was going on with the company and my decision to pivot it into this space. And I've felt an extreme amount of anxiety and guilt associated with having to do this. And my perspective at the time was that he was going to ask for his money back, that, I had like failed as the CEO and founder of a company, and that the lunch, let's just say, wasn't going to go well. And instead, what I found is that he was extremely supportive. He didn't even read the letter, and he said, like, what are we going to do next? Like, give me the ideas. What are you thinking about inside the customer service world? And so, looking back on that, I do feel like I definitely misjudged the situation. I now have a much greater appreciation for the fact that when folks back us as founders, they're backing us. They're backing you as a person and your potential and what you can potentially create. They're not investing in what you have today. And I think that's a really important reminder. I think that's a good example of how good investors show up. I think there are examples of investors who don't do that, and I would put them in a different category. But that was one of the core lessons I think I learned. I think related to that, I think it's so clear that so much value is created. So much value is created by wonderful teams that the folks who back you could never anticipate. Like, who would have thought that NVIDIA would be the most valuable company in the world today? Like 30 years ago, or 20 years ago, who would have thought that? Who would have thought that a company that makes GPUs, graphical processing units for video games, would be the number one AI company in the world? No one would have thought that. But a lot of people who backed Jensen wouldn't have been surprised that he would be the person who could figure that out. And I think that's a core lesson. I try to show up that way in the companies that I back as an investor these days. And I try to remember that, we are always a function of our potential and not only what we've created so far.
Thank you.